Hello and welcome to this short presentation, an introduction to machine learning. My name is Brian Steele and I'm the Technical Development Lead at Kedron UK. To start, let's think about this question. What is the goal of machine learning? To which the answer should be, the goal of machine learning is to take some existing real-world data, like monitoring metrics for CPU, memory or disk, etc., along with a target metric like device availability or application performance or even end-user experience, and then work out all of the following. First of all, which of the real-world data is relevant to the target metric? So does monitoring the CPU performance help me understand the application performance, or am I wasting my time? Is there a better metric that I should be monitoring? Next, what is the relationship between the real-world data and the target metric? So for example, if monitoring hard disk performance has proven to be a good indicator for application performance, then if hard disk performance doubles, does the application performance double? Or is there some other correlation we need to find? And last, but by no means least, the whole point of machine learning. I should be able to present new, previously unseen real-world data and then use it to predict what the target metric is likely to be. Okay, for example, here is a machine learning opportunity. This table shows the memory utilization and latency for 11 servers, and you can see that they fall into 3 role categories, including web, app, and database servers. Additionally, the last column shows the current status for each server compared to its agreed SLA. Now, at first glance, it's not easy to see why the results for server 11 are abnormal, so let's look at this data in a different way. Here we have plotted all 11 servers by their memory utilization on the horizontal axis and their latency on the vertical axis. Now it becomes obvious that the servers have fallen into 4 distinct groups. So if we mark up the chart, we can see the 3 clusters of servers along the bottom, and this shows how the web, app and DB servers all tend to have similar characteristics. The clustering also highlights the slow server as an outlier, which is standing completely separate from all other clusters. So thinking about the data we have in this example, how could machine learning be used to develop a formula that can be used to agree with the current results and also be used to predict future results? Thinking of how this formula development might work, here is a brief example. In this table, columns A to D contain the example data for 11 servers that we have already seen in previous slides. If we take a look at the data in column B and use it to try and predict the results for column C, for our first try we might come up with the formula B divided by 2. Using this formula we can see how column B translates to column G, and how this works absolutely fine, highlighted in green, for the first 5 servers, but then fails to correlate for the remaining results. So this formula needs tweaking. For our second try, if we simply add multiplied by F, then the formula is improved enough so that it now correlates for the first 8 servers, but then it fails to correlate for the last 3. So this formula is definitely better, but it still needs more work. For our third try, if we simply replace F with F greater than 1 plus 1, then all servers apart from the last one will correlate. Now, given that the last server's results are outlying, then this formula can be considered good enough, and it can be used to estimate any other intermediate results for metrics never seen before. Now, the method of machine learning that we have been discussing until now is supervised machine learning. It's considered to be supervised because we are using real-world data where we actually know the correct results. In this way, any discrepancy can be fed back into the development of the formula, thereby its development is being supervised. For example, let's see how machine learning is used to solve the classic problem where we are trying to learn some function f that takes parameters of data like a, b, c, which could be CPU, memory or disk utilization, and then maps to some target value X, which could be latency or some other metric for application performance. So machine learning develops this formula using something called a model, which is simply a framework of rules designed to solve the problem in hand. While the model is actively developing this formula, it is said to be in training, during which the parameters being used to develop the formula are termed the hyperparameters. These hyperparameters are identified automatically by the model, which uses an appropriate algorithm to develop the correct formula. There are many kinds of algorithm available for the model to use, and selecting the most appropriate will depend on the problem that we are trying to solve. Now let's think about how accurate the model has to be. In this example, we see that the web servers have results that don't follow a straight line through the other server roles. In this case, the model will develop a more complex formula, which will more closely follow the observed results while still allowing us to predict for intermediate points. During the development of the formula, the model continually compares its predicted results with the real-world example results to see how closely it is tracking. Once the formula is within a close enough approximation, it's considered to be right-fitting, and the development of the formula stops. By contrast, in this example, we can see that the model has overdeveloped the formula, so much so that it simply tracks the real-life example data exactly. This problem is called overfitting, and means that the model has basically memorized the results. When this happens, the effectiveness of the model is compromised because it will not be able to accurately predict for intermediate points. Here are some examples of the different types of algorithms. Binary classification, which solves for questions like, will the customer buy this product or not? Then there is multi-class classification, which solves for questions like, is this product a book, film or clothing? Then there is regression classification, which solves for questions like, what will the temperature be in Edinburgh tomorrow? Once the most appropriate algorithm type has been selected, during model training, different algorithms within that type can be tested to see which one develops the best formula. Another type of algorithm that can be used is a neural network, which takes its inspiration from the human brain. In fact, it's a neural network which is used inside Tesla cars to perform autonomous driving. But before we explore how a neural network is able to take hyperparameters and develop results, let's take a quick look at its inspiration, the human brain cell. Here you can see a depiction of a single human brain cell, which takes inputs from other cells to its left. It then processes these inputs to decide if it is going to fire and send a response out onto other connected brain cells to the right. Now, to put the single brain cell and its connections into some context, let's take a look at this example, which shows just 12 cells in a small section of brain. You can see how complex the connections between the brain cells can become, even with just the few cells shown here. When a machine learning algorithm wants to construct a neural network, it will create artificial brain cells like the one shown in this example. Each artificial cell is constructed using computer code and has the 3 layers input, sum and activate, which are configured using the hyperparameters weight, bias and threshold, which are initially set to some random value. Now let's take a look at how the artificial cell works. The input layer takes the input values and adds on each of their weights. The sum layer then adds up each of the input values, including their weights, and then adds on the bias. The activate layer then takes the results from the sum layer and subtracts the threshold. If there is any positive value left over from this calculation, then the cell fires, and the result is passed on to the cells to the right. So, a small neural network might look something like this, with metrics being fed to inputs on the left and outputs leaving on the right. The higher the output value on the right, the higher the confidence the neural network has in the predicted result. So in this example, we can see the prediction is for email OK, which equates to a confidence level of 92.2%. This is because the output of 237 divided by the sum of the outputs is 92.2%. You can also see that the neural network is divided into 3 layers: input, hidden, and output. The input layer will contain as many cells as are required to accept all inputs, and the output layer will contain as many cells as are required to represent all available outcomes. However, in between there will be multiple hidden layers to provide the required amount of complexity and therefore prediction accuracy. During model training, test data is fed into the neural network and its predictions are compared with the test data results. Any deviations in the predictions of the neural network are used to tweak the hyperparameters by adjusting the cells' weights, bias, and thresholds. This process is performed iteratively until the deviations are minimized, at which time the model is considered to be trained. Regardless of the algorithm used, there are always 7 steps in the machine learning cycle. During fetch, the required test data is collected from all sources. During clean, we augment any missing data, normalize it, and then remove erroneous data. During prepare, the data is randomized and organized into the correct format and location, ready to be accessed by the model. During training, the model takes 80% of the test data and feeds it into its algorithm to train the model until it is right-fitting. During evaluation, the trained model is used against the remaining 20% of test data, just to see how well it predicts the known results. During deploy, the model is moved into the production system. And finally, during monitor, the model is checked for effectiveness and accuracy. If needed, a different algorithm will be selected or hyperparameters will be adjusted. So, in summary, in the context of monitoring tools, machine learning is a process that a computer uses to learn from real-world metrics, enabling it to predict the performance and availability of configuration items when presented with similar or new previously unseen metrics. And that concludes this short presentation. Thank you very much for sticking with me. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We will be happy to help.